Hello, this is Pixel Freak, and we are doing part 52 of the Final Fantasy Dimensions walkthrough. This is going to be covering Mount Wells, now that we have left Birth. And there's some story elements in here, and we actually kind of leave Mount Wells for a little bit, and we do some other pieces. There's more story elements that come up. We're kind of starting to move now. There's only a couple more pieces before the game starts to move into its final chapter and kind of the final act of the game. Moving towards that. We're not quite there quite yet, but we're getting there. So here we are, Mount Wells base. And again, as has been for the last few videos, I am making these comments kind of in a reactionary basis because I played through this probably 2-3 weeks ago now. I'm still catching up with the commentaries for all the videos that I recorded forever ago. So a little hazy on the details of what went down here. I do know that I cleaned out all of the treasure boxes from this dungeon. At least I think I did. If I didn't, and you see one that I didn't get, like that little red one down there in the bottom left-hand corner, if I don't get that, make a comment. Let me know how to get what I missed, and I'll make sure and put an annotation in there to fix that. The idea is to be as close to a walkthrough as possible. So for this dungeon, I'm not sure that there was any particular enemies that were really noteworthy. I know a couple of dungeons back, they had the underground base where there was a lot of guys that casted petrification on you. I don't think that there's anything like that here. It's mostly just relatively easy enemies. There's a paralysis. That's still not that big of a deal. So I'm still capping out my jobs here. I think that these guys on this team are just starting to reach 20 with their first set. I think pretty soon I switch. Maybe it's Soul, I think, that gets switched over to his first secondary job. His first secondary job. His only secondary job, I guess. It appears I left that treasure box there, the one in the front. If anyone knows what it was, leave it a note and I'll annotate. I may somehow go back for it, but I don't think so. I must have just missed it. That's interesting. So this game is actually a pretty long game, and I have to comment on it. At first, in the beginning of the game, it didn't really bother me, the repetition and how it's so formulaic. The way that you progress through the game, but also the monster recolors. They didn't bother me at first, but at this point in time, we've seen the bomb in like every color imaginable. It almost, to me, seems like they were really taking corners to try to make this a full-fledged Final Fantasy game as far as length is concerned, but not necessarily as far as overall content is concerned, or even design. I mean, the game's just not designed that well. It's only designed okay. And as far as I'm concerned, this is what I would anticipate that a mobile Final Fantasy would be like. Unfortunately, they priced this game a little higher than, say, Final Fantasy 3 and Final Fantasy 4 on the mobile store for both Android and iOS. Which that's unfortunate, because I think that those games are probably better games. In my view, that's the case, because overall they've just got more coherent stories. It seems they're more polished than this. This seems like it follows, like I had said, a real careful formula and just repeats it over and over again. We'll see how the game wraps up in the end, because I might be really surprised and there might be some kind of revelation or something really cool at the end of the game that may change my mind. But this one, I think, is playing third place as far as Final Fantasy games out on Android and iOS. Still a good game. It's still probably worth its price tag, though I'd say this one's a little bit closer than the other two. The other two, they're $16 a piece on the regular price, and I think they're worth it. I really think they're worth it. I own both of those, and had a lot of fun going through Final Fantasy 3. Final Fantasy 4, I'm still getting started out on. I want to finish this one before I jump into 4 a little more. Even though I'd already beaten both those games on my DS before I even played them. This one was a new one to me, and I have to say, it started out real strong, and it hasn't aged well as I go through the game. Because it feels like I'm just kind of doing the exact same thing over and over. And a lot of the story elements that they have in this game, things don't seem to develop very well. It doesn't feel like they're developing a story, it just seems like they're introducing new characters and quickly recycling them. You know, you just get rid of somebody and then you introduce a new character and then do something tragic to that character. And it's unnecessary. It's unnecessary to do it that way. The problem being that you're never really attached to the characters that have tragedies or the characters that have any kind of development whatsoever. All the characters that are on your team have such little development that you're really not following or becoming attached to your own party. You're being expected to become attached to these throwaway characters, and it's not as effective, I'd say. Final Fantasy III really wasn't really great at pushing a story along either. It was a little bit more incoherent. You didn't really know what you were doing. You just kind of went from one place to the next. But the overall game polish there, I think, outweighs the fact that its story was even a little bit worse than this one, I think. Not to say that the stories are particularly bad, because the stories in these games, all the Final Fantasies, probably some of the best stories that I've seen on my Android device. A lot of the other JRPGs out there, just the stories are incoherent. The stories are bad. I would say the stories are bad in most JRPGs on Android. They're localized poorly, they don't make any sense, the dialogue is extremely awkward. I guess that would kind of go into the localization part. There are some localization issues a little bit in this game, and there are some errors where text would wrap kind of funny. But really, I'm going to let that go, just because it's not that big of a deal. Here, at least, the characters are believable. But I don't think that shouldn't be the benchmark, you know? A good story should be the benchmark. And I don't think, we just haven't gotten there yet. Especially not with original content. Alright, we have painstakingly got to the first save spot. And unfortunately we are only a third of the way done with this section. But I think the cave does end here relatively soon. We are introduced to the 5th character for this section of the game. I think he's a Paladin. And it's a really good class. I'll probably be picking that one up as a secondary, probably for my... oh, I must have missed something. I sure did. I think I'll be using the Paladin as my secondary for my warrior on this team, for Aegis. It'll probably end up being that he's using the Paladin job as his main job, and then he'll use his warrior skills as backup, or something along those lines. The Paladin was really good, though. I was very impressed with the 5th character. I can't think of what his name is, but he gets introduced here very shortly. I liked, too, in the very beginning of this game, when they show the first opening scenes, the first couple scenes, they kind of gave a little bit of a foreshadowing / spoiler, where there was some tragic incident that kind of started to happen, and then they showed all of the 5th characters kind of in a row. They were just like, they give them like one-liners, or they just, you know, kind of flash to them for about 5 seconds and watch their reaction to this global event that happened. You really knew, too, at that point in time. It's like, okay, so I'm probably going to get all those guys on my team at some point or another. I just wish that it'd be cooler if you were able to select from some of the members, but that's not the way this game's designed. I mean, the game's designed to where your party can go between all the different jobs, and all of the additional characters are just a single job character. And the idea is you're the warriors of light and darkness, and so you can swap out. But I think that to me, that makes it so your characters you can't get as attached to them. When you have a character that can only be one thing, or has a limited set of abilities, that helps define who those characters are. In this game, because you're choosing it, which is another good system, and I like that for a different set of reasons, but you don't get the same attachment. You have to go the designers have to go an additional step to write better dialogue to help those characters develop better when they don't have their own set of unique skills and abilities that weren't determined by the player. Final Fantasy 13 kind of suffered from the same thing. To an extent, Final Fantasy 10 could suffer from it as well. Final Fantasy 3, which was 6, I guess is the one I'm talking about. That one was interesting because everybody started out and they had their own role, but as the game proceeded, you could kind of mix things up a little bit. More it was gauged around, you could turn everybody into either a melee character or a magic user, or both. So it made all your magic users kind of obsolete, because by augmenting yourself with the various espers and their bonus abilities, you could turn any character into a mage if you wanted to, which means your mages weren't unique. But that was a game that, if you played it, if you gamed the system, you could end up with a similar situation where something that was critical to a character's personality became not so unique. The melee characters, though, they stayed unique. Alright, so boss for Mount Wells is Vata, and you're going back through it at this point. You've seen how we're going back through and fighting these generals again. I think this is the last time that the second time we meet everybody is the last time that you meet them. I think you only fight everybody twice. And I don't remember off the top of my head this being a specifically hard fight. And part of that might be because this team, of my two teams, this one's a little bit more over-leveled than the other. I do see he is hitting pretty hard. Yeah, and in fact, he was fast and he was hitting hard. So as with many of the other previous boss battles, wow, he hits fast. So be sure to definitely have at least one really good healer here, if not two. I'm not sure how you would spend two in this particular fight. But yeah, he is hitting very quickly and very hard. So you need to have your white mage just chain casting Kiraja over and over again. If you've got anything else that will heal you up, try to use that. I know at this point in time summons are kind of out of the question. That was the thing. That particular fight, he doesn't have a whole lot of HP, but he hits hard and he hits fast. So you need to hit just as hard and fast. You can approach that from two different ways. You can go dual healer and have your offense be really, really bad, but then you're healing the whole time, and so the fight's going to be drug out a little bit, but you probably should be safe. That's probably the more conservative way to fight that fight. Or you could do it like I did it and be a little bit over leveled, but then just do an all offensive strategy with just one character doing chain Kirajas, and that should probably take care of it too, as you saw my approach. So he disappears. Maybe there's a third time you fight those guys. I thought I had read that you only fight everybody twice, but it's a possibility that, like Final Fantasy IV, where you get to the end dungeon and then you fight everybody one last time, just boom, 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 all in a row. I think you did that in Final Fantasy I as well. You had to go fight all the elemental guys all at the same time, back to back. They did it in 4, and they might do that again in this particular game. I really wish they would have tied the generals, and they might still do this in the future. I wish they would have tied the generals a little more to their elements that they represent, because each one of the generals does represent an element. They've actually said that in the dialogue there. They'll say, I'm the general of fire or whatever. They did tie them that way, and it might be a nostalgic move. It might just be that, I don't know, that's how they wanted to do it. But they are elemental based. I think it's kind of silly. They should have done it elemental based, but then had the elemental weakness there. To my understanding, that's not how it works. So this drunkard here, he is the paladin that's going to join your team. I can't remember exactly his name, but he has a history with Sarah. And that piece is going to be uncovered here in the next video or two. We're going to learn a little bit more about their relationship and their past and what's going on there. This is also going to be where your team splits up. You're going to go in two different directions. So Sarah is going to go off on her own, and hopefully you have her set up in some way or another so she can fight on her own. Now, with my character, Sarah, she is primarily a black mage, so she really can't fight very well on her own. She does a lot of offense. She hasn't left quite yet. She does split up, though, from the group eventually. But she can't fight on her own because she's a black mage. She can do it for a little while, but she runs the risk of dying, and in order to avoid that, for the pieces where Sarah was alone in the game, I just ran from every fight, or at least most of the fights. So here you go. I'll shut up for a little bit here when we kind of go through this little piece. This is actually, well, maybe I won't shut up, but this is actually the piece where how Sarah came to be. It's a little bit of a preview for the Paladin role. I'll shut up when we get back to the story elements. So if you're reading the different abilities the Paladin has some really cool abilities where you can strike multiple enemies and with a pretty good offense. There's one where you hit and then it hits everybody else for half damage. He does Mighty Guard, which I think does Protect and Shell on everybody. I do believe. There's a Hit Everybody attack, the Wind Slash one. A couple others. But they were all very useful attacks. The problem that I saw with the Paladin is that he doesn't have a lot of MP, and his attacks use a lot of MP. So you're going to end up burning it up pretty quick. It'd be really cool to have him with a character that has his Black Magic MP plus 20%. That'd give you a little bit more MP. It's kind of like the Monk. The Monk's got a lot of really cool abilities that need a lot of MP, and he just doesn't have a lot of MP inherently. There you go. So this casts Protect and Shell. It's the equivalent of. I'm kind of doing a demo of all of his abilities. He's even got some cure spells, which is really great. A little bit of healing. Unfortunately, his healing ability is so limited that you would never really want to use it in a fight, aside from this one situation. If you ever need more healing than a white mage can do, then a ninja. If you ever need more healing than a white mage can do, then you are probably going to need more healing than a paladin can do in addition. You're going to be in a boss fight, and the boss is going to be doing so much extra damage that the white magic that the paladin has just won't be sufficient. At least with a lower level paladin. I'm not sure what kind of access he gets to spells later on. He might have access to some of the higher cure spells, but to be seen, at least. It's beyond my knowledge. So it's kind of similar to the storyline, just a few parts back where they draw you out they draw the character out into one area and then sneak up behind. It was in that forest area, and we went to the Imperial base camp, and then we came back and they had killed everybody in the base. And same thing here. The primary defenses came forward, and then they swept out of the back. So that is the story of how the Paladin became what he was. And Sarah I'm not so sure that's been made clear yet, but Sarah is the princess of that kingdom. And so he was there to protect and wasn't able to do so. And Sarah ended up being able to flee somehow, but her family was not protected by Gawain. I really dislike that name, Gawain. So there's a good example of the text wrapping. Just really, really fell on its face. It doesn't seem like Square Enix to let that go. It seems like they would have had somebody play through it. It could be something where various devices have different resolutions, and because of the way they programmed the game, on certain resolutions the text ends up wrapping funny. But it seems to me that they would be able to see that and put some sort of a catch in there to sniff out when that happens and then force it onto the next line or something like that. But I don't know enough about Android development to really say that. Alright, so all the characters are still together. They do break up, I promise you. It happens very, very soon. But we're off the mountain now, and we are headed back to town. Are we headed back to town? I think we're going back to town. There we go. And then despite my hesitation, you are supposed to select yes there. That is the event that pushes the story further. Oh no, Sarah's missing. They look at the bed. She vanished. Maybe somebody casted Toad. You don't even know. She went to Burt Gang. So in the previous video, I had said that this video was about Mount Burt Gang. That video is coming up. I'm not sure exactly which one is next. The next one might be Mount Burt Gang. I'm not sure. There's a series of Burt Gang videos where there's the town of Burt Gang, there's Castle Burt Gang, there's the Burt Gang Mountain, or Mount Burt Gang, however it works. I do believe Mount Burt Gang, I think, is the next one, because that's the mountain that Sarah ends up passing that mountain on her way to the town and castle of Burt Gang. And then there's a large piece that happens at the castle. And we can't forget in there somewhere, there's our summon. Alright, I think I go the wrong way at first here. I go up. You're supposed to go down. But just humor me for a moment while I find the dead end. There we go. And I'm on my way. It's funny, I was actually, I was watching back through some of the old videos. Once in a while I do that, just kind of go back and check them and make sure I didn't mess anything up. And when this Dr. Luge, when he's first entered into the game, I go, oh wow, that character looked a lot like that doctor that had the Frankenstein bot from Final Fantasy IV. That's because it's the exact same character. It actually is. Dr. Luge was his name, and he's Dr. Luge in this one. In that game, he made the Frankenstein robot that was an attack robot. And in this game, he made Argy, which was that that robot. That I think that robot's still alive on the boat or something like that. It's been a little while since I saw that character, so. All right, so to continue the story, you have to say yes again. It's kind of funny. You approach him and you're like, I want to sail. Okay, so are you ready? Well, yeah, I told you I wanted to sail. And you're off. All right, so now they put you back with Sarah, and Sarah is going to approach from a different route. Eventually you do meet back up, but Sarah goes this kind of longer route and goes over the mountain. So the next video should be Mount Burt Gang. Sorry, I was wrong about this one. That's going to be the end of this video. So make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, this has been Pixel Freak.